Live right here on this Monday on the early line on SportsGrid. It is time for that prop perspective to start off a new week. TV Tom Vecchio joins us live right here on TEL, of course, of SportsGrid, the host of Pro Baseball Today, alongside Donnie Rightside. How was the first show, Vecchio, during the full start of this MLB season with a full card on a Sunday for you and DRS to break down?
Yeah, yesterday's show was awesome. We went through some big picture stuff. We went through every single game on the slate. We got some good winners. We knew there's going to be plenty of offense between the Cubs and the Diamondbacks. Obviously, the Yankees are going to continue to score a million runs. That was great. We'll roll through that every Sunday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. But we got a lot to get to today. Let's jump into it.
Let's jump into it, Vecchio, and let's not forget the Final Four in San Antonio. You have been following the bracket. You have been paying attention to a tournament not known for its chaos this year, but rather its chalk. For just the second time ever in the history of the men's NCAA tournament, all 4 1 seeds have reached the Final Four. Vecchio, what do you make of that? What do you make of this weekend with so many good teams battling it out in San Antonio?
We're getting awesome basketball, and that's what it comes down to. And I said this on Saturday when I was doing, betting around the rim, and I don't want to throw some shade, but this is what we want to see. Do we really want to see UAB versus UNC Wilmington in the Final Four? No, we want to see the best basketball possible, and that's ultimately what we're getting. Despite the Houston-Tennessee game being a little bit ugly, which I actually enjoyed, we are getting the best players and the best teams out there. The one takeaway I have, at least from the Auburn game, is Broome was awesome, but no one else did a tremendous amount on Auburn. And if they run into that again, where is that production going to come from? Because at pound for pound, I think Florida's better, and I think they can outscore them if they can keep Broome under control, at least some capacity. So that's my instant takeaway from that. And then, of course, we'll be siding with both unders in both of the games.
What are your expectations, though, moving forward here, Tom? You mentioned it. 4 of the best teams in the country, the 4 best teams, the 4 number 1 seeds. Are we talking about team with the ball last ends up winning both these games, or what are you thinking we're going to get?
That's probably what I'm expecting. Frankly, I think there's going to be a really interesting spot, at least from the Houston-Duke game. If Duke can flex that offense and they get out to an early lead, I am going to be very interested in taking Houston. Yeah. It's 4.5 now. If you can get them at a 6.5 or a 7, and then if Houston clamps down on the defense, brings back some points on the other side, you can get Duke maybe a -1. So that's what I really want to find. Duke, a little bit of offense, you buy back in on Houston at a bigger number, and then we get buy back in at Duke, and I think you'll have a really nice spot to find the middle. And I think it'll be Duke versus Florida ultimately.
And just to say, just for the idea of this tournament being chalk, we often see that by the time we reach this stage of the big dance. The cream does rise to the top entering this year's NCAA tournament. 62 spots in the Final Four belonging to a 1 seed, more than 60 in total for seeds 2 through 4. So we do often see a lot of ones. The idea of UAB and UNC dub, not often what we will see anyway. So we have all 4 1 seeds in San Antonio. We also have the opening weekend of this Major League Baseball season. Vecchio, some of the big headlines: an offensive onslaught for the New York Yankees, 15 home runs, 36 runs scored in total in the 3-game sweep over the Brewers. Rafi Devers off to a slow start. The Dodgers unbeaten, 5-0. The Padres unbeaten, 4-0. The Cardinals undefeated at 3-0 as well. What was your main takeaway? One of the biggest things that stood out to you this first weekend of the Major League Baseball season?
What stood out to me is obviously the story with the Yankees bats, and I said this to Donnie yesterday on Pro Baseball Today. The bats are the MLB version of the tush push. The bats are legal. They are within the confines of the MLB rule. One team is doing it. Everyone else has the ability to do it. Alex Cora, the Red Sox manager, said some of the Red Sox players were using those bats in spring training. Everyone can do it. Either get on board or figure out how to pitch better, because that's one thing. 2, I'm not worried about the Braves. They look terrible. They got 1 hit last night. They look terrible, but I'm not worried about them long term. And I think the younger players from the Red Sox are really going to be in a spot to carry them if Devers continues to struggle. Those are the takeaways I have. And the Cardinals are not this good.
The Marlins are that good, though, Tom. They're 3-1, and every game's a walk-off. If you don't put your foot on them, it's, oh my goodness here. Did you have the Marlins starting 3-1 to start the season here on your bingo card?
I did not, and the Marlins are a team that it's like a team like it's death by 1,000 cuts, right? Like they're never going to beat you with the long ball, right? They're never going to hit 15 home runs like the Yankees, but if you let them hang around, some emerging young pitchers like Max Meyer yesterday, like they have the pieces to make to cause trouble to teams when they think they could take their foot off the gas. That's not going to be the case.
Yeah, and Vecchio, we mentioned our guy Jack McMullen, who has been a frequent guest here on the early line, the new radio play-by-play voice for the Marlins, calling 3 walk-offs in the first 4 games of a season. Every guy he announced scoring the game-winning run in dramatic fashion I had never heard of. So the Fish off to a great start this year with all of those young pieces. We've got a 14-game slate around MLB on this Monday. 4 games, Vecchio, in the afternoon hours.
Yeah.
So in that early portion of the MLB card, what are you liking the most?
Let's go to the Phillies. They got, a bit of a tough game yesterday. I was on them for multiple areas, props, winning, whatever it might be. But let's go to Kyle Schwarber, 2+ total bases. He's going up against German Marquez. Last season, German Marquez only pitched 4 innings. The year before that, he only pitched 20 innings. He has been dealing with injuries the entire time. So we have to go all the way back to 2022 when we see he allowed a 493 slugging to lefties, 1.61 home runs per 9. Also, in spring training, German Marquez looked terrible, absolutely terrible. So we can take Schwarber for 2+ total bases at +105. You could also look for him in RBI. Alec Baum, I'm also very interested in this year. He didn't come through yesterday despite having massive exit velocities to start the year. I will also be on Alec Baum for 2+ total bases.
Well, I'm guessing the Mets are going to try and take a little bit of a view and realize that we should probably put Miami away sooner rather than later. So give me a prop in this game that you're looking at.
Yeah, that's going to be going to Pete Alonso. It's kind of the same situation where Alonso had some really nice exit velocities to start the season versus Houston. I'll take him in a RBI at +125. Cal Quantrell's on the mound for the Marlins. I know he pitched for the Rockies last year, so some of his numbers are slightly inflated, but last year versus righty, still a 464 slugging, 1.70 home runs per 9, and a 487 xFIP. So the Mets are the better team. The Marlins are off to a great start, as we just spoke about, but the Mets are the better team, and the offense will be there. They have a 4.97 applied run total. I expect them to score today.
A really big slate around the Major League Baseball card on this Monday. That's what you want for the first full week of the MLB campaign underway. Vecchio, we've got 8 games in the NBA on this Monday night. As we go to the hardwood, what's one of your favorite plays for the day in the association?
Yeah, let's go to Lakers, Rockets out west late night. And let's go to Alperen Şengün under 19.5 points. It's -122. It's a little bit of juice, but I see this as a more defensive style of game, despite the offense that we've seen from the Lakers, obviously, versus Memphis the other night, the Rockets. This is a game that's important. Both these are playoff-bound teams. I'm hoping that we see a playoff-type environment. The Lakers are still around the 9th fewest points per game to opposing centers at 20.8. They're still 21st in the league when it comes to offensive pace. Like, they're not playing super fast. I think their defense is slightly underrated despite a little bit, some losses they've had. And Şengün's been under this number in 6 out of the last 10 games. I don't expect him to be the focal point on offense. I'm expecting a playoff vibe in this game.
Vecchio, what else? We've got Major League Baseball. We've talked college basketball. And in the NBA, can we round it out, jack of all trades? Is there a place you like on the ice tonight as the NHL regular season nears its conclusion as well?
Yeah, let's go to the Avs at home. Nathan McKinnon, one of the best players in the league, 2+ points at +114. Over the last 2 weeks, he's going up against Calgary Flames. Flames are in the bottom half of the league, 2.81 goals allowed per 60 minutes in 5v5 situations. McKinnon's obviously awesome. He's tied for the league with 109 points. He's coming off a game with only 1, coming off a loss, and I love Nate, the fact that he's in a spot juggling back between him, Leon Draisaitl, and Nikita Kucherov for the most points in the league. Let's take Nate at 2+ points at +114.
Tom Vecchio, man, that's how you do it. On this Monday, we've got Major League Baseball props. We've got props in the NBA. We've got props on the ice as well. We call you the jack of all trades and the prop perspective delivered each and every time. TV Tom, as always, we thank you for being here on the early line on SportsGrid. We'll talk a little bit more around MLB up next here on TEL. 14 games on this Monday around Major League Baseball. That means 28 of our 30 MLB clubs in action. First full week of this Major League Baseball season about to begin. And the Dodgers, Joe, as we might have expected, are already winning a ton of games to start this season. Both games in Tokyo, sweeping the Tigers in a 3-game set over the opening weekend in the Bigs as well. Make that a perfect 5 for 5 for the Dodgers. Will it be a perfect 6 for 6 against a Braves team in Atlanta looking for its first win of the year, having been swept in a 4-game set elsewhere in Southern California against the Padres earlier this weekend. Late night at the Ravine in Los Angeles. The Dodgers a minus 220 favorite as Tyler Glasnow gets the start. The over-under stands at 8 for this game. Will the Dodgers start as the odds makers expect, a perfect 6 for 6?
Remember, Ben, when I think it was a couple of years ago, actually over the last couple of years, when it came to Dodger games, there became a point in the season where we're like, just lay the run and a half, guys. Just lay the run and a half. They're not losing one-run games. They're not winning one-run games. They're either going to win by 1 million or they'll lose outright. In this particular spot, I don't see how they're not covering the run line here. I like Glasnow, only I'm going to cut this game in half, given the bullpen work that we saw them have to deploy against Detroit here. So I got no problem backing LA early in the first 5, and I'll lay that half a run in this one, expecting that they get the homes before Atlanta gets the Glasnow.
I think it's a good look as well, Joe, just because of how hefty that price is now with Grant Holmes getting the start for the Braves. The Dodgers, of course, a very short favorite entering this year to win the NL, to win the World Series. That's where LA still stands at plus 135. The Braves did enter with the second best price to win the National League pennant. Now, we saw some crazy moves in terms of the individual award races, most namely Aaron Judge, minus 110 to win AL MVP after entering the year with the second best price at 3-1 behind Bobby Witt Jr. The Braves' price, despite dropping each of their first 4 games to begin this year to win the National League pennant, did not really move. That's probably sound. There's 162 games to be played, even 158 remaining. Atlanta's still plus 550, Joe, second best number to win that National League pennant.
Yeah, and listen, I expect their offense to look a lot scarier than what we just witnessed here in the first weekend there, Ben. I think they're going to get healthier as the season goes on. The pitching will settle in, and they are going to be a tough out for anybody, including the Dodgers.
Shut out twice, though, by San Diego, as Joe had been alluding to. Some interleague interesting matchups tonight, early on in the year, for 2 teams that won their opening weekend set. That would be Houston and San Francisco. Let me just make sure they didn't play each other to start this weekend. Let's make sure they did. I can't find it. They did not. So let's just make sure on that. Thank you very much.
Houston played the Mets. The Giants played the Reds.
Houston.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just making sure. A lot of bracket central focus for me this weekend. Houston did win 2 of their first 3. San Francisco winning 2 of their first 3 as well. The Astros hosting the Giants to start off this set on this Monday. Minus 122 for Houston at home. Ronel Blanco gets the start for the Stros. The over-under stands at 8. How do you break down the opening game of this set in H-Town?
Well, you know, it's funny because Houston didn't hit all that much against the Mets, and you had mentioned they still managed to rally and win 2 of 3 in that series there. And I would not be shocked. I mean, Alvarez had a couple of big hits during the season, but it's the pitching, and that rotation and that bullpen really showed me something. I think that's going to be what their calling card is. I think they're going to win a lot of 4-1, 5-2 kinds of games here. They're at home. Another first 5 for me. The bullpen did get a lot of work, Houston, there, but I think Blanco going up against Hicks, I think we're going to get fewer runs early in this. Little first 5 under 4.5 for me here.
Again, a 14-game slate around Major League Baseball on this Monday. 4 in the afternoon hours. We'll talk a couple of those games as well. Let's go out to the Pacific Northwest. The Mariners in a divisional duel to start off their MLB campaign. Split a 4-game series against the Athletics. The A's could be a feisty team this year. Both teams winning 2 games. The Tigers, as we shared, swept on the road in Los Angeles this weekend to begin. Jackson Jobe, the promising righty for Detroit, makes his first MLB career start today on the road in the Northwest against the Mariners. Total stands at 7.5. The M's a slight favorite. The Tigers, though, Joe, despite dropping their first 3 games, very high hopes. I know I bet them to win an American League pennant before this year got started last week. What do we think of this game in Seattle tonight?
Yeah, I think whoever pitches against Seattle, I'm taking their strikeout prop over. This team is awful. They strike out more than I have seen anybody in the first couple of games against not great pitching, by the way, against Oakland there, and they couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. I don't know how that changes here. I do think Detroit gets off the schneid, gets one here against Seattle, and does it actually rather easily.
The underdog today, Job's K-prop, by the way, for his MLB debut, 4.5. The over having plenty of juice. Joe, let's talk a couple of those afternoon games. Our first game on the docket in Milwaukee. The Brewers very happy to leave the Bronx, head back to the state of Wisconsin. They will host the Royals. It's basically a pick'em between Milwaukee and KC. Slight edge for the Brewers in their home opener.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, they got absolutely smoked. But again, we had asked, is the Milwaukee pitching this bad? It wasn't like the bats weren't there. They didn't have a problem scoring runs, putting some runners on base. But is that are they that bad? I think we'll have a better idea after this series. Feels like an over to me. I expect Kansas City to put some runs on the board, and I expect Milwaukee to do the same.
Joe, you would certainly hope that if the Royals were watching anything that happened in the Bronx today, maybe a couple of torpedo bats finding their way to Milwaukee for the opener of this set for Kansas City.